Can I remember it? Oh, yeah. Should I change?
If you can improv on the fly and change it, yeah, go ahead. But maybe just play the hits.
Okay. We're talking hockey. Sidney Crosby. We're talking hockey. Joined by Aaron Ward.
Hello and welcome to That's Hockey Talk. Special episode today. We are going to talk to three-time Stanley Cup champion Aaron Ward.
Legend.
Hilarious dude.
Best. Classic hockey guy.
Nice guy. I'm your host, Nick Moraldo, joined as always by Pal of the Pals, Lad of the Lads, our north of the border friend, Gumpy. Gumpy, how you doing, pal?
Great. Hockey's flying right now. I love it.
It is. There's one thing missing from this show, though, and I just don't know what it is.
I mean...
Oh, it's that big fat stew, JQ Shipley, who once again has hung us out to dry and left us just stranded here on our own.
Who would have thought, huh?
You know, I keep getting these texts too, like, I promise I'm all in. Next week, I promise. Now, he's still moving. He's still got shit going on. It's like, pal, you played in the NFL for 10 years. You just won a Super Bowl. Hire some movers.
Trying to talk hockey here, pal.
We're trying to. He texts me all the time about all the games, and now it's like we come to actually, here's the platform. Here's the show. Let's go. It's time. Nowhere to be found.
We're in the meat of the season. We're in the meat of the season, and there's big news that we need to talk about. The best news I've heard in a long time.
Yes.
Hockey is back on the worldwide leader. ESPN and the NHL have agreed to a 7-year deal for the television rights. $2.8 billion cash influx to the league. We're going to get 25 national broadcast games on ESPN. We're going to get 75 national games on ESPN Plus. We're going to get hours and hours of other games on ESPN Plus. We're going to get Stanley Cup Finals. They've agreed to 4 Stanley Cup Finals. And a couple conference finals will be on ESPN. Now this leaves the door open for a double dip. So they're going to go back to NBC
for the other 3 years. Fox has allegedly been in on the action. I would assume, though, NBC would be the one.
If Fox is coming back, are we getting the red puck back?
Oh, the glow puck. Give me the glow puck.
Oh.
I would love that. Aaron Ward, he worked with the analytics and stuff with the infrared sensor in the puck. Maybe he could shed a little light on that. And then we will have live game coverage, obviously, plus studio. They're bringing back a studio show. I'm interested to see because they haven't made any announcements on who's going to do the coverage and who's going to do the play-by-plays. And it's still too early in the process like that for ESPN.
I mean, Patty Sharp. Keep that guy on
You
TV.
got to pry him away from NBC. That's it. What happens to him? And Ryan Callahan, I saw now, is doing it with NBC. These guys just got started in their careers now. So it's like, is ESPN going to pry them away? Here's what I ask of ESPN as a hockey fan. My impassioned plea. We don't ask for much. We've been through a lot. I ask you for 3 things. Give us the promotion. Put the plays in the SportsCenter top 10.
Yeah.
Bring back the SportsCenter commercials, the classic ones with the New Jersey Devils mascot. You know, give us the goddamn game. Grow the game. Put it on people's eyeballs. If you have to force a conversation in Stephen A. Smith's world on First Things First or First Take or whatever it is now, do it.
I mean, you talk about every other sport. You know what I mean? Like at this point, it's like we're talking about basketball fucking 5 games into the season. You can talk about the NHL playoffs.
Give us the social media
on
clips.
ESPN now. Let it eat. Let's get the game back out there. Let's grow the game.
Give us the social media clips. Give us that presence. That's to be assumed, right? You assume they're going to do all that, but that's what we want. Okay, that was 1. 2, the music, and we got confirmation on this already. So thank you. The NHL Tonight theme, the National Hockey Night theme. Dun, 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 dun. That's coming back already. They confirmed that. They put that out there. Beautiful. Great move. Easy move, right? Easy move to appease stooges like us. We'll eat that up. The third move. Bring back the old gang, the OGs. Bring back John Buccigross. Bring back Linda Cohn. Bring back Barry Melrose. Get them out of the holes they've been hiding in, and let's get them talking puck on the main shows and give them their studio show back. Get Steve Levy over there. Bring back Gary Thorne. Let's get Gary Thorne back on the play-by-play, on the broadcast. We need Gary Thorne. We need that voice, that iconic voice.
I mean, maybe you dig up Bill Clement.
How many years has it been since they've been on ESPN?
They left after the lockout. So the original lockout, and when I say the lockout, I mean the lockout, which canceled the whole season in 2004.
Yeah.
So it's been a long time. But I see Bucci, he's already tweeting up a storm. He's chomping at the bit. Barry Melrose has been doing stuff. I think it's in the crease on ESPN Plus already, and they trot him out there, like you said on Pat's show earlier. They trot him out there at like 2 a.m. on SportsCenter.
Yeah, it's late night for
every
sure.
once in a while for a hockey take. But give us those guys, and then hire a couple ex-players or two. But let's not go overboard. And the ones you do hire, let's look at NBC's recent example of the Ryan Callahans and the Patrick Sharps. Let's not go digging back into the old Stone Age for the Mike Milburys and the guys like that. We don't need it. We don't need the old stooges and the dinosaurs. We need the young guys who've played the game recently, who have a fresh perspective and can tell you what's going on the ice out there and can help fucking grow this game and appeal to the masses. Give us some flavor. Give us something new.
Hockey's back, baby.
It's back. Thank God. Also back on this show, Aaron Ward. Let's get to that interview right now. Ladies and gentlemen, joining us now, a Canadian man who became a Michigan man, then went 5th overall in the NHL draft. 5. That's impressive. Became a made man in the NHL, winning 3 Stanley Cup titles, going back-to-back with the Wings, and then coming right out of the lockout with the Carolina Hurricanes. Mr. Aaron Ward. Aaron, how are you?
I'm fantastic. How you doing?
Hey, what'd the boys call you back in the day? Was it Wardo?
Yeah, I mean, it's always adding vowels, right? We're the least inventive people, but it's kind of a rite of passage that once you get vowels out of your name, you're accepted.
Hey, I want to talk to you about what you're up to now, because last time you were on the show, we talked a little bit about the analytics movement that you're involved in. Can you tell us about what's going on with that and how you're working with the league?
Yeah, so I work with a company called SMT, Sports Media Technology. You'd probably know them from the yellow line in football.
Yeah.
There's
pretty big deal.
Strike zone for football. I mean, for baseball. I mean, name the sport. There's something there. Telemetry for NASCAR, where it's put out on the broadcast. So anytime you see some virtual effect or a ticker or anything on TV, you'll see it in March Madness. We're involved. So we are the contracted group that basically runs the player and puck tracking. We have tags in the players. We have infrared light silos in the puck. There's a camera system in the ceiling that picks it up, and there's GPS. Basically, we can identify where you are on the ice. Player, I think it's 15 times a second. I think puck is about 60 times a second. And you give you the X, Y, and Z coordinates. So for the world of analytics, it opens up innumerable options as to how you can dissect the game, dissect players. For players, it's a headache. I mean, you can see anytime someone lobs out a question, the media to players asking about the value of analytics, most guys say they have no use for it. And I think part of it's out of fear. But I think as time goes on, players and everybody from the fan base to whoever consumes hockey, whether it be wagerers or the everyday fan, will learn to kind of accept where analytics and player and puck tracking is heading.
That's really interesting, because you, being a former player yourself, has your perspective changed on it? Like, would you have thought differently when you were playing if someone approached you and talked to you about it, or you got asked a question in media?
I would, because actually, so Scheifele was posed this exact question probably about a week ago, and he said he had no time for it, thought it was the waste of time, doesn't pay attention to it. Now, here's the thing I gotta say. I understand as a player, because when you start to look at where this is heading, I think the fear for most players is it might be used against you.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So you're coming into a contract year. What will they have on you? And the truth is, it's where we're heading, right? So once we have speed, time, and distance, we can somehow formulate a workload, right? So you can see if you're ascending or descending in your performance. Are you consistently able to put out the amount that you had when you were 24, now that you're 32, right? And so that might be used against you. But here's the truth. The CBA has it where this cannot be used. Even if they have it in the back of their mind why they're coming with a number, it can't be used in any type of arbitration. So for players, I don't understand why you wouldn't want to use it. And I was a proponent to, that's for number geeks, right? That's for math nerds. But truth be told, if you really open your mind up to what is possible, it can go so many ways, right? So as a player, I can look at it and say, where do I find myself best performing, right? So I can say, if I'm playing well, where am I finding that success? I think I would love to have that. If I'm not playing well, where am I different from years past? And so as a former player, and I'll say where I was most adverse to it, I stepped out of hockey, got into broadcast. I worked for TSN, and after we came out of the CBA and I taught myself economics, my executive producer came to me and said, "Hey, how about presenting analytics?" And I was like, nope. Because truth be told, I skipped the math classes at University of Michigan, right? I don't. It's not what I thought I would ever need. But when you finally get down to it, I think the truth is players don't want to talk about it because you don't want to look uneducated. You don't want to look or incapable of explaining what these things are. And I think that's where it's at. When you really dig deeper, the truth is, and this is where I've come to embrace it, if you're a person that lends yourself to, it's the eye test that matters.
Yeah.
Where analytics plays for a role for you is, does it support your viewpoint? So do the numbers say, hey, listen, I'm seeing this about this guy, do the numbers match? And if the numbers match, I'm like, well, then I feel really confident about that position. If I'm what I see is what I value guy, and it number contradict, maybe it just causes me pause to go back and take a second look. So I think that's really honestly where the fear comes in for most players is, I don't want someone to ask a question about the game I play. I make a lot of money doing it, and I can't explain it. So there's so much to be pulled out of it, whether it's minute things for guys that just want to know the smallest things, or a guy that really wants to delve deep into his performance and pick it apart.
Right, and your point there, that's with coaches and personnel guys as well, because then when you start evaluating the evaluators and you look at poor draft picks or recent failures with free agency signings, and then you match it up with analytics, it paints a bad picture sometimes. So I could see why guys would be really against that, because it's almost like doubling down. Here's another dirty little secret. So I had to present to 30-plus teams this summer all about the analytics. Half the coaches could care less about it. Oh, yeah.
You have guys that played in the 80s that are coaching now that can barely touch email. Hand them the numbers and they're grabbing their Crown Royal and stepping up. That's the truth. So I think most teams now have gone the direction of, they have an analytics group that helps the management staff make decisions on players that are American Hockey League potential draft picks, and maybe where they can improve upon the current players in comparison to other teams. The coaches might value it to try and mix and match players, but I don't think anybody throws it wholeheartedly into one direction. Carolina Hurricanes, maybe, very self-directed. Their management is basically directed by a guy by the name of Tolsky who values his numbers, but most teams have an equal evaluation of what the scouts see versus what the numbers present.
Yeah, it's the age-old adage of it's a tool. It's another tool to evaluate. It's not the be-all, end-all. It is a piece of information that should be and could be considered in the process. You mentioned coaches and the old school coaches, and something that just popped off recently, which I think caught a lot of people by a little bit of a surprise, was Jeff Ward was let go in Calgary and Daryl Sutter takes over. He's one of the ilk that you mentioned, like the old school hard-nosed Canadian coaches. Like, what's your take on this? Because it seemed like it was a little jarring.
I would tell you that kudos to the National Hockey League. Again, we're the greenest league, maybe for recycling coaches, only maybe paling by comparison to NBA. I mean, if I see a Van Gundy coaching a team, I think he's probably coached more teams than teams he hasn't coached. So I'll say this. So gone by the wayside, in my opinion, I think most players playing now are the old school coaches, the real old school by definition coaches. You don't see the Scotty Bowmans. You saw what happened with the head coach in Carolina. You saw what happened with Babcock.
Yeah.
All these guys are disciples of Babcock. Babcock's now coaching at University of Saskatchewan. The reason why is
the Huskies.
The reason why these guys are leaving is because it no longer resonates with the locker room. These guys are wired different, right? They're presented with different challenges. I never had to worry about my Instagram followers. I didn't have to worry about my not my behavior, but what my image is in public, because there's not all these cameras lying around, and guys are pressured by different things than we were. We were worried about, could we work the hangover off that we had the night before, and did we have to take pregame skate, and would they smell it on us when we started sweating? That was our issue. So I would tell you that bringing Sutter was a bit of a shock for me, right? So Jeff Ward, this is a symptom of Calgary not performing to the level that I think everybody expected them to.
Yeah,
right?
I think everyone thought they were going to be way up there.
Go ahead.
I think everyone thought they were going to be way up there in the division.
And the parameters have changed completely from what we would know. I mean, now you got a North Division. If you gave the Canadians their druthers, they would keep it this way. right? To always constantly have these battles. And I would say, I don't have sympathy for the coaches, but you have to adapt to this newness of how this is all scheduled. Every game in the North Division is an absolute playoff style game.
Yeah.
And if you look at how it's happening, Montreal comes out kicking it. It looks all good, and they've fallen off. Why? Because everybody understands what Montreal is bringing to the table, and they're prepared.
Mm-hmm.
Toronto is now experiencing this, right? So now they've got a bit of a slide going on. Everybody's figured out, well, if we get a hold of Austin, maybe we can do something different and maybe a different result. What does Vancouver do? Pockets a guy and actually starts abusing him. And now Matthews is now in a situation of having to figure out, do I focus on the game or defend myself?
Yeah.
So bringing in Sutter was a shock because you think about the direction coaching goes and what it takes to motivate these guys. And I don't think they all need motivation, but I don't see Sutter being the new age motivator, shall we say. I think he's accustomed to herding cattle more than he's accustomed to getting guys to prep for a game lately.
As evidenced by Gumpy, you pointed this out.
Yeah, what would you do if you were a veteran on that team and he comes in and he's got you skating lines first practice, Aaron?
I would probably. So here's the deal. I'd probably do my research before he got there. But again, like I played an era where I could contact guys and say, hey, listen, what do you know about him? And that's what every guy probably did, right? There's some Rolodexes that really he had to dig deep on in the Calgary Flames locker room to find guys that could relate to what it was like playing for Sutter. I just shut my mouth and do it.
Yeah.
I mean, truth be told, is Tree Living's been under fire for a very long time. Calgary's been under fire for a very long time. You can only get rid of so many coaches before you have to make decisions about personnel. And I think that's where Calgary's at right now is all this hope for Monahan. We know what Gaudreau is. We know what Kachuk is. You've got an aging guy in Giordano who's still commanding, I think at 37 years old, he's getting somewhere north of 21 minutes a night. You've got to have that step into the new direction. And when's that going to happen? And is that going to happen slowly, or is there going to be a baptism by fire and blow it up? And I think this is the last grasp at trying to go with an old school guy that's going to get the attention of young guys. And you only have a small sprint left in the season. This isn't a marathon anymore. You've got to get Calgary in position to get in the playoffs. And from there, I think everybody's just hoping for the best.
Yeah, that last point right there was what really grabbed me. Was Sutter seems like a guy you bring in when you know you're ready to go take off and win a championship. I don't know if it's I don't want to say it's a false sense of delusion or where they're at or anything like that, but it feels like you just like grasping straws there. It's like, here we go, one last one.
I think for a lot in the North, and specifically Calgary, it's familiarity, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna lean on guys that you know can execute for you. And Sutter has been a guy, I mean, he's proven in his track record that he can get it done.
Absolutely.
I just don't know the means by which he does it necessarily be effective here. So True Living's looking at a guy saying, I'm not going to pin my hopes on the finishing of the season and my livelihood on a guy I'm going to take a flyer on, which is essentially what he did with Jeff Ward. I had Jeff Ward as assistant coach under Claude Julien in Boston. Great guy, but cut his teeth as a head coach most recently in Germany prior to coming back over here to take over Calgary. So Tree Living's looking at his livelihood too.
Let's go look big picture again. The big news breaking today that the ESPN and the NHL have agreed to a 7-year deal for the TV rights. Half of the TV rights, I should say. They're still going to sell the other half, but ESPN's got a bunch of games. They're getting a couple, like 25 national games. They're paying $2.5 billion. They're going to beef up ESPN Plus with a bunch of games. Is this? Obviously, I think it's a great move for the league. What are your feelings on it? Because you played in the era where they were on ESPN, and it was household names and nightly promotion, and it was in your face all the time. It was much more relevant than it is now.
I think this is actually an exhale moment for a lot of players, if you really think about it. So the pandemic has done, and I'll go back to my first kind of diatribe I went on about understanding the collective bargaining agreement and how prior to getting in analytics, I taught myself economics and legalities. HRR is a dirty acronym, right? Hockey-related revenue.
Oh, yeah.
And with a pandemic, you're getting killed right now because you have no rear ends in the seats. And this is a sport that's driven by fans in the building, concessions, parking, all those, any residual sales off of a jersey that a guy has a whimsical desire to have it because all of a sudden he feels good about his team winning, right? Those things no longer exist. So if I'm a player, I'm looking at, well, the longevity of the league specifically. We keep talking about where's the salary cap going. I mean, this is great relief for players to think about. The hockey-related revenue dollar figure is going up, right? So yeah. You said 2.5. I thought I saw 2.8.
2.8, yeah, sorry.
Essentially, you're going to have probably $400 to $500 million a year in just the U.S. market alone, and rights holders paying towards the National Hockey League. That's a big dollar figure that is sorely needed right now. It's going to offset what the players are covering in their escrow, right? So players don't want, when you see a guy that's making, I don't know, $10 million, he's not making $10 million.
They hate
not
that
even coming
escrow.
close to making $10 million, because off the top of that, you're already taking the federal taxes, the state taxes. Some cities like Nashville, you got a performance tax. Then you got an escrow. My year at escrow, I paid a 23% escrow on my salary. I was taking home 40% of what I made.
That's crazy.
So,
and what's the selling point to you guys for that? When they take that escrow, they say, well, the cap's going to go up. Everybody's going to make more, right?
They say that.
Exactly.
I didn't. Well, plus I was a plug, right? So my ceiling was way smaller than everybody else. So I think for the exhale factor or exhale component for management, knowing that salary cap should be something manageable, right? There's a ton of bad contracts out there, and I think they were all stressing coming into the summer, how are they going to get themselves out of it? Now they'll know, okay, I think generally we can function under this kind of assumption, so they can deal with their current rosters and signing certain guys and then project forward from there.
And you look at a guy like Patrick Laine in the offseason, like, what do you think he's going to get paid, Aaron?
The thing for me with Laine is what is his mood?
Yeah.
I hate to put it that way.
You're right.
The Winnipeg Jets spent the entire year basically trying to answer the question of what has happened to him production-wise.
Yeah.
Then we look at the circumstance where now we have him coming into the season, and you're looking at, does he want to be traded? This is a guy that has essentially said that he doesn't want to be in Winnipeg. So now that he's gone to Columbus, and we take out the torch factor, because the torch factor is a huge factor for all of this, right? I mean, getting in there and getting sat right off the bat because of, insubordination towards another coach. I mean, this is a tough situation. Does Laine like the fact that he's playing for a guy like Kukalainen and enjoying playing for a Finn? Does he like playing in a U.S. market? Is Columbus, having gotten rid of Pierre-Luc Dubois' dollar figure, got under the salary cap the opportunity to bring this guy in and sign him? These are all things that play into it. I think Laine's experience about being miserable, and not being Winnipeg, but miserable playing for a team, is going to really kind of influence where he decides to go.
On a similar note, have you heard anything or any thoughts about Jack Eichel's situation in Buffalo? We talked about it at length in the last episode. Now the news comes out he's injured. He's been dealing with some type of injury since before the season, allegedly. Now it seems to have escalated, and he's going to miss at least a week. So a lot of people think they thought that was trade talk. But
it's a neck injury.
Yeah.
So when they talk about upper body, I think the most indicting video is in the Islanders game. There is on NBC feed a trainer actually working on his neck. My understanding is cervical vertebrae. It's a lingering neck issue. I put out on Twitter yesterday that, as I understand it, he's going for a second opinion. What that means, I don't know if it's a matter of he's not certain about the diagnosis, or he just wants to see if someone else has a differing view of how to address it. But I mean, for Eichel, this is a tough season. This is a guy right now that is nowhere close to generating the opportunities. And it was 1 goal, 8 assists on a season on 5-on-5.
Yeah, it's
been
these
bad. Numbers where he was last year, I think he was 24 goals, 26 assists, 5-on-5. He's not there. And everybody's like, well, look at the team around him. Well, here's the truth. Guys in similar situations are still getting it done.
Yeah.
I mean, we're indicting Edmonton for what happens there because it's always a Draisaitl-McDavid show, right? So Eichel, who's drafted the same year, he's just not getting the same things done. So do we go back and say, hey, listen, this is because of injury? Or is it a young guy that has to learn some hard lessons that a lot of star players have to learn? And I'll give you an example of a guy I played with. Steve Yzerman, when I got to Detroit, was going through the transition. And that transition was encouraged by Scotty Bowman because he knew that in order to win, we had to have our key guys do certain things. Mm-hmm. All right, so Eichel, I would say from a preparation standpoint, conditioning, focus, may have to take an inward look and decide what he's going to do. And I'll point out that maybe even on ice he has to change some of the things he's done, a la Austin Matthews. Austin Matthews currently, even though he's leading it offensively for Toronto and just killing it in the National Hockey League, the thing that jumps out on you is he's killing it defensively.
Yeah.
I mean, turnovers, block shots. I mean, everything about Austin Matthews' game is transitioned into completion. So I think that maybe a former teammate of mine there, and I'm sure he's trying, Eric Stahl, maybe has to take a young guy like this aside and say, hey, listen, if you're looking and there's all this focus on Jeff Skinner and what he's not getting done, right?
Yeah, that was a big contract.
Right, and so there's a tension there. Hall comes in, makes a choice to be in Buffalo. There's all attention there. While there's like a separation of attention, try and figure this out quick, because soon the microscope is only on you, and it will be on you, because Buffalo is a great city. I know a million guys live there post-career. Marty Biron, to one, swears by it that Buffalo is a fantastic town. But they're passionate.
Very.
And
absolutely.
If you're not putting up, you might as well pack your bags and jump off Niagara Falls.
Do you think they'll move him, Eichel?
I can see it. Only in that, listen, Kevin Adams, who's a GM there, a former teammate of mine here in Carolina. Baptism by fire, right? Comes in, Pegula's pick him to do it. If you told me who did you play with over your career that would likely be in management? Kevin Adams. I was like, the least shocking announcement at the start of the year that Kevin Adams was taking over. But he's got time, right? He's got an opportunity to mold it in his desire and form and his vision. And he didn't draft Eichel. I think it's a perfect opportunity now in all the struggles, right? So Hall may not come back. Eichel, you have an opportunity to get something still of great value for a guy, and you can say, oh, he was injured, or the pandemic was on. There's all kinds of reasons why you can point to, as the opponent devalues your trade piece, you can come up with an excuse to counter everything they're saying. So I can completely see it. Again, we go back to the dumbest statement in hockey. If Gretzky can get traded, everybody can get traded.
Yeah, and that's what they say. There were some rumors popping up a while. I'm a Penguins fan. Sidney Crosby, the situation with the slow start in Pittsburgh, conjecture started to come up. I think Drager floated it out there of a possibility of Crosby sitting down with management at the end of the season thinking about a move, and that was the phrase that gets thrown out everywhere. If Gretzky can be traded, everyone can be traded.
Those moves make sense, right? So if you take your Pittsburgh Penguins jersey off, you take away being a fan, and you're looking at the big picture of what do you want for Pittsburgh, you've got guys aging. And I would say Crosby I would pay attention to, but I'd more look at a guy like Malkin, right? Where there's still value right now, get rid of him. And it's not a personal indictment on anything he's doing, but I'm saying you can get something in return from a team. You can maybe hoodwink a team, right, into picking this guy up.
There's a lot of bad GMs out there.
But you've got to separate yourself from your love of a player to what's in the best interest of an organization.
Oh, I hear you. Believe me, I'm a logo on the front, name on the back doesn't matter. I'm with the organization, ride or die. On that note, you played for Jim Rutherford, the former GM of the Penguins. Is that correct? What was the relationship like with Jim? And that was an interesting move of him stepping down in the middle of the season. Some issues there. Nothing really ever surfaced as to what the actual cause was. But do you see him being a fit anywhere else, taking another job and jumping in, maybe like a Buffalo, to come in and kind of help Kevin Adams, give him a hand, another their voice, type of like a consultant role, something. I think that was Elliot Friedman floated that idea out there.
All right, so nothing has really ever been substantiated in Pittsburgh, and generally, the National Hockey League is a leaky sieve.
Very leaky
when it comes to player information. But when it involves management and ownership, things are tight. So I would essentially say my understanding was there was a disagreement in direction or vision for a player or current players, kind of going back to what we were just talking about Malkin and Crosby, involving another player potentially, and Jim maybe wanting to explore and ownership not wanting to. And truth be told, like, Jim's won Stanley Cups. And not to say that he's just going to step aside because he's tired of it, but he has options, right? If he evaluates this and says, hey, I really can't honestly direct this team because I'm being told I can't, then maybe now is the time. Maybe this is the beacon. This is the sign for me that it's time. Now, to the second part of the question, I agree. I would look at where his past relationships are, right? So even on down to Ron Francis out in Seattle, right? It's a team. I mean, the more brains there, the more hockey kind of backgrounds can only benefit that organization to help in a expansion draft, into building a farm system. I mean, their their mountain of tasks is greater than anything else, and it wouldn't be a bad idea to subdivide some of these things out. So there's value there, and I agree that Jim Rutherford is a longtime executive, and he'd be of value to Buffalo, right? He's very familiar with the East. He's familiar with the division they're in currently, and things will switch up eventually. But he'd be someone that could float and pick and choose where his landing spot would be, and probably be pretty successful.
You mentioned Seattle. Has an expansion team in any league ever faced more pressure coming in after what Vegas did? It's mind-blowing too what they were able to accomplish. And now Seattle, like, the expectations have to be through the roof there.
Here's my question. How pissed are you if you're Tampa, Ottawa, San Jose, all these expansion teams that came in that didn't get the gifted opportunity of the way the expansion draft played itself out, right? Honestly, basically Vegas was handed everybody's either kind of sixth player that falls into their second line or their top third line player, and those guys are pretty damn good, right? A lot of guys that are falling the second and third line on other teams will do pretty well, and you're basically held over a barrel as a team who has to protect certain guys. You have to make some hard decisions. So I'm saying to you, this pressure for Seattle is to do as well as Vegas did in terms of maximizing the opportunities you have that are sitting there. It's an absolute layup. Don't hit the rim, the base of the rim. Make sure you bank it at least and give yourself a chance.
And it is wild when you think, like, they were given top prospects. They're giving Marc-Andre Fleury, who's still
all those guys
and the
with
salary
chips
cap.
on their
Think about the number of bad contracts Vegas took, right? So I don't know if it's going to be the same situation for Seattle as it, or it may be, because we're just talking about the HRR and the salary cap. But the expansion team can really give teams cap relief, and for providing that cap relief and allowing them to keep certain components that exist on that team and not have to expose them, you have to give up a fair amount. So if I'm Jim Rutherford, I'm bringing a capologist with me if I'm going to Seattle. If I'm Ron Francis, I'm finding a couple of capologists. I think Botterill's out there in Seattle currently, smart individual from, I think, the University of Michigan, but correct me if I'm wrong. So they've got a task ahead of them, but I think, again, it's a better circumstance than the expansion teams that you saw in the 90s.
To your point about the Ottawas and the Tampa Bays being upset, the only devil's advocate I would throw in there was that Vegas paid, I think it was like $500 million for the expansion fee, and I think Seattle paid something similar. So you throw them a bone.
So now wait, are we talking inflation right now?
Yeah, you're the economics guy, so I don't know. I don't know what those. I don't know what the old teams paid.
Let's remember though, in the 90s, the game wasn't generating near the money. The value of a franchise, right? So they're basing the buy-in on a value of a franchise. Like, so we didn't have streaming. We didn't have near the National Hockey League TV contracts. None of that stuff, right? So the Players Association started marketing players. The league did a better job of getting the exposure internationally for the game. So the reason why Vegas is buying in is that's what the assumed value, maybe overinflated, but that's the value of franchise.
True. I got one more Homer question for you on the front. Did you play? You played in Anaheim. You spent some time in Anaheim. Did you play under Brian Burke there as well, who kind of took over as president of hockey ops?
So I had the pleasure of playing for the grumpiest coach in the hit. Well, I don't know if grumpiest, but Randy Carlyle.
Yeah.
I had Randy Carlyle, and I'd say he ranks as my top one coach I've ever played for that I despise the most. So I'm an older guy, right? I got traded to Anaheim, and one thing that I've made consistent over my career, I was good to my locker room attendants, my equipment guys, my medical staff. No matter where I went, even if I was there for a short while, I'd give them my per diem money on the plane for lunch on occasion. I would buy. So I go to Anaheim, and my guys in Carolina call the guys in Anaheim, say, "It's a great guy. We get along well." So as a gift, St. Paddy's Day. I'm older. I'm 37 years old. I'm having 65 cc's of liquid taken out of my knee. So we play a game. I linger after the game. No one's in the locker room. And out comes the medical staff, and they got a bottle of Jameson for me.
Oh, let's go.
Like, heaven. So pull out a Gatorade, got some crushed ice. I'm sitting there sipping it. And I'm serious, and I tell you, it's probably an hour and a half after the game because my family's not out there. I'm sitting around in the locker room. In walks Randy Carlyle, okay? He's giving a locker room tour. And he sees that I'm sitting there drinking a Gatorade, right? And in the Gatorade, he looks over, and there's a bottle of Jameson somewhere in the sight line. So, Here's the irony. Jackass has got a white wine in his hand giving a locker room tour. But the next day he pulls me in the office, sits me down. He goes, "What's your deal?" I go, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "What's your deal? You come in here." So we had this conversation, and all I remember the end of the conversation is he goes, "You're just like Bertuzzi, Doug Waite, Matthew Schneider." I'm like, "What the hell does that mean?" So I walk out, and guess last first guy, he's like, "What was that?" I'm like, "I don't know." Randy was telling me I'm just like Bertuzzi, Schneider, and Doug Waite. He goes, "Oh, you're done." I go, "Why?" He goes, "He hated them." Sure enough, we play LA an afternoon game. My family flies in. He sits me.
Jesus.
So Randy, I was the only guy in media. It was the one thing I ever felt good when the announcement came out. I was like, "Oh, he got fired. Oh, too bad."
Damn shame. Huh?
Damn shame. Hey, that's pretty good company too. I feel like.
Yeah,
Those are
I'd
big
take
names.
that as a compliment.
Hey, this is like
Christ.
Sesame Street, though. One of these things is not like the other. I'm the only non-Hall of Famer.
I thought he was going to call you all booze bags or something. Lo and behold, those guys
I
were
think
stuck.
that was his implication,
Yeah.
because when I got to Newport Beach, I might have rented a house on the water that was 5-bedroom. It was just me, great view of the ocean, and I might have paid a homeless guy every single day. I slid a 50 under the doormat. And when we came back from practice, there might have been a few cases of beer on ice on styrofoam coolers outside waiting for us, and I might have brought the rest of the team down. So when we were in a playoff position when I got there, we weren't at the end of the season.
See, I'd call that team building. I'd call that camaraderie. I didn't know you were
That's what I'm
tanking the
saying. I'm being a
team.
good veteran.
What else
Come
are you
on
going
now.
to do in Anaheim, huh?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Gumby got anything?
No, that's good, man. Just one thing. You talked about teams changing the styles they're playing because of the divisions. Do you think that means that there could be a dark horse that wins this thing this year, don't you think? Or do you think that's going to be a favorite?
I don't, because here's the thing. What are your bases of comparison?
Yeah.
So we have 4 separate divisions. You played I think it's Winnipeg still has 6 more games against Toronto to come, right? So, but North has only seen North, West has only seen West. We can only really honestly decipher certain things. Minnesota is outperforming where everybody thought they would be.
Yeah.
I mean, there's teams that are really good. Islanders are really good. So I think you really have defined top 4 in every division, but you have no comparables. So one team or one division can be completely hot garbage, and we have no idea at this point because all they're doing is beating each other up or playing the dogs at the bottom and getting their points. I think that, truthfully, you're going to see some shockers and surprises in the playoffs when they finally start crossing over, because for a lot of guys, you won't have seen an entire team for the entire year and not know anything about them, right? So your coaching and scouting staff's going to have to pick these guys apart and hope the players in that locker room absorb it on a level that, it's going to be a deficiency for young guys who don't know the tendencies of playing an Alexander Ovechkin and how he plays you one-on-one or where his office is, right? Until you experience that, you don't really know. It doesn't become second nature. So now in the playoffs, it's absolutely baptism by fire.
I know what I wanted to ask you, and I remembered it. You mentioned Minnesota. You also mentioned being sat as a player. Zach Parise was a healthy scratch for the second time in
16 years?
Yeah. Can you explain that? Because it was baffling to us. It was like, this guy's done so much, and you make one little mistake. And are you really trying to set an example with that guy to that team?
Yes. I mean, here's the tough part: is this is through and through a business, and coaches know that to keep a room sometimes. I mean, this is a Scotty Bowman 101 move, right? The reason, not only was he tactically above everybody else, but he played psychological games where he never allowed you to feel comfortable. Like, it was from a top guy. Like, I witnessed Scotty Bowman get in Steve Yzerman's kitchen. I witnessed Scotty Bowman get in Shanahan's kitchen. I was a permanent dweller of Chateau Bow Wow for Scotty Bowman, along with Kozlov and McCarty and a good number of guys. That was how he functioned. You are never allowed to be comfortable. So where there's an opportunity to send a message to a locker room, and I think that this is maybe what's happening in Minnesota, is you take a veteran guy who hopefully, before you make this move, in your estimation, is going to handle it properly and not be a divisive presence in that locker room. He's going to shut his mouth. He's going to realize there's a purpose to this. Whether he self-reflects or blames somebody else, he's probably going to stay pretty quiet about it. And hopefully it has a rebound effect, both for the individual player and for that locker room. But yeah, again, you said it earlier, the name on the back, sometimes you have to remove yourself from feeling sorry for them because, at 52 games, you've got a limited amount of mistakes you can make, and you've got to make an impact over and over and over to keep, it's like a horse race. You got to keep whipping the rear end of that horse to make sure there's no let up.
Well said. There's not enough time to fuck around and play any games. You got to be on your shit. 2 more quick ones, real easy ones. Who's the most talented, skilled, impressive guy you've shared the ice with? Teammate or against? I'm just curious.
In terms of just straight up skill, crazy things you could do.
Yeah.
So even before the generation that we have now, where everybody's posting dropping the stick behind the net, lacrosse goal or whatever they're doing. I had a teammate in New York, and his nickname was Michael Nylander. We called him Michael Wylander because everything was the question. You'd say something, it was why. But he could stick handle a puck in a phone booth. I had no idea how he could do it. And listen, I just tried to stick handle the bigger piece when I got the puck. This guy could, he would kill it. And the worst part was I would actually choose, because of his skill set, not to go against him in one-on-ones or certain drills in practice. Like, I was getting a little older, so I'd maybe lean down and I'd be smart enough to tighten my skate when it was going. Just so that, you're still trying to make an impression on a coach, right? So you don't want to get.
That's a business decision right there.
Yeah, so that for me is the guy. Nothing comes out for me as one guy that was so ridiculous. There was, for me, I would say more was an honor every time you got to play against a guy that had, stature, or you maybe grew up watching him and he was playing. Those are the things that impact me more. Those are the guys I remember of I remember thinking, well, Wayne Gretzky's old. And then he took me wide. I'm like, oh, he's not that old.
All right, last one for you. I try and ask this to all the guests. If you were if you were commissioner for a day, you had your run of the league, what's one change you would implement?
I would go buckets off for 3-on-3.
Wow. Let's go.
So here's why. The growing of the game involves getting a personal attachment to players, right?
Absolutely.
And to take a helmet up, and I know, listen, here's the problem. I'm going to get as a former PA member, I'm going to get a kickback on player safety.
Yeah.
Okay, so you asked me a question. If I had my druthers, here it is. I'd get all the guys with their flow. I get all the guys with red faces and the guys who who are playing 3-on-3 are highly likely your top line players. The star effect. You get them out there, you see everything, and you play the 3-on-3 in that manner. I would also, the other thing I would say, in which it can't be pulled off if I was commissioner, I'd command on the 3-on-3 for the entire crowd to be silent, because I think one of the coolest things for the true fan is to listen to the level of communication and what gets said on the ice that we're privy to now that we've never been privy to before. Not just the crap talking, like guys shitting down each other's throats about stuff they know about each other. Hockey players are legendary researchists, if that's such a word. Like they'll go to great lengths to figure out something about a player. But I'm saying in terms of the intricacies of playing the game and how they communicate, what gets said, and what's said versus what actually happens, I think that's one of the cool components of the game.
I couldn't agree more. That would be a viewer's dream, I think, to be able to get that level of knowledge and insight into what those guys are saying and how they're communicating. Because a lot of times it's just like one word or 2 words, and it ends up meaning a whole goddamn series of events.
One more. I would, and again, it was kickback, right? So we're qualifying this. I hate the shootout. It was cool for the first year. Yeah. I'm tired of it. I would honestly like to see us start 3-on-3 and play 5 minutes and go 2-on-2.
Wow.
I mean, here's the thing. The shootout's gimmicky, just as gimmicky as 2-on-2. Do you want to see a guy with no back pressure going in on a goalie and that's the end of it? Or do you want to see 2 guys actually, probably your highest skilled players, play against each other and just go back and forth end to end?
I hear what you're saying, because even now sometimes in the 3-on-3 situations, they do it is often highly entertaining and skillful and fast. But there's a couple times now I've seen they're slowing it down. Guys are taking their time. They're skating circles in the neutral zone.
So the response to that now, if you looked at Paul Maurice, is he's just simply taking his top line, not even taking a defenseman. It's 3 forwards.
Yep.
And his next one is 3 forwards. Because if you're going to do that to me, I'm going to expose you.
Love it. I love it. There needs to be that type of mind. There needs to be more of that attacking mindset, and people need to be willing to live with a turnover now and then to achieve that entertainment value and that ability to win a game. You need to go take it sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wardo, appreciate you, man. Thank you for taking the time. I know you got a lot of media coming up. You're the best, man. We got to have you back on often.
Anytime. I finally fixed it up so I can actually invite anybody into my house.
Hey, it looks good, man.
There was like at least a half hour of cleaning up here so I could make it presentable.
It's good luck.
Appreciate it, man. Everyone listening,
Thanks,
please follow along at NHL_Aaron Ward on Twitter. Check him out. You got Instagram? You on Instagram? You got anything you want to plug?
I got Instagram, but believe me, it's my dog and my kids. I'm not that interested. I only have it. I got a son who's an idiot and 2 daughters who are teenagers. I do it for monitoring purposes only.
I hear you, man. I respect it. All grown up. All right, man. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Aaron.
Guys.